This is my review of the Yunzii AL68. I've owned this board for around 5 weeks and I just wanted to give my honest to God review to help anyone who is making a similar decision and, similar to me, find it quite difficult to actually choose because there are so many makes and models of mechanical keyboards nowadays that it is really difficult. I find it really difficult to choose. So starting off with the board, the Yunzii AL68, 65% keyboard. I got it with Gateron Zero linear switches. However, I did switch to Gateron Smoothie Mints, so this board isn't technically stock anymore, but I'm going to give a review of the stock switches and also the switches that I put into it. So there's three main reasons why I bought this keyboard. The first is that it is wireless, the second is that it's hot swappable, and the third is that it is made out of aluminium or aluminum, depending on what part of the world you're in. So onto the wireless part. You can connect it via dongle, which I do. You can connect it via Bluetooth, or you can connect it via USB-C and just run a wired connection if you want. On the latency and input of the keyboard, I've noticed no issues whatsoever. I don't play any online games anymore, like competitive games such as Counter-Strike, Valorant, League of Legends. So down to the wire latency isn't that important to me. However, for offline games and for typing, I've noticed zero input lag whatsoever, but I would recommend looking up the specific details behind it if that is something that is very important to you, because I can't, honest to God, comment on it. The second is that the keyboard is hot swappable. So once you remove the keycaps, you can take out the mechanical switches and change to whatever you want, as long as they fit. And as I mentioned, I switched to Gateron Smoothie Mints, which are a silent switch. I'll comment more on the sound of the switch and the feel of them later on in the video. Lastly, the keyboard is made out of an aluminium base, so it's quite heavy, and I can't really tell you why I wanted an aluminium base, but it was a deal breaker for me and I wasn't considering any keyboards that didn't have it. I just kind of wanted it to feel heavier and honestly feel a bit more, I suppose, premium or upmarket, but at a slightly cheaper price point. And on the price point, I paid £58 for this board with the Gateron Zero linear switches. I then paid a further £20 for the Gateron Smoothie Mints, so £78 altogether, roughly $100 I'd say total. Before we move on to the sound, I just want to go through a couple of the features / gimmicks of the board. So something here that is on quite a lot of keyboards nowadays is a volume knob. So you just twist it, put the volume up or down, and I think it is configurable, but I haven't done anything with that. It would be useful for someone who doesn't have any sort of volume controls or speakers with a volume knob. However, I do. I have edifiers here in the background that the volume knob is literally centimeters away from my hand at all times, so I never actually use this, but it would be useful to someone who doesn't have that, I suppose, accessibility or convenience. One of the gimmicks that I found a bit strange that seems to be on a lot of keyboards, including this one, is the backplate. For whatever reason, the backplate looking nice and having like this kind of mirror essentially with a little mountain does look really nice. Takes fingerprints like nothing. It seems a bit gimmicky. I don't understand it because you literally never see this ever. And it's not something I care or really appreciate, to be perfectly honest, and it's something that I hope didn't put the price of the board up, but it's there. I think it's a bit gimmicky. So the Gateron Zero linear switches have that kind of like thocky, creamy, I don't know what the actual correct terminology is, I'm going to be perfectly honest, but they have that kind of thocky, deeper sound, and I really liked it in review videos and probably for the first 30 minutes that I used it, but it's a little bit distracting. I found it a little bit distracting because I am so easily distracted and I lose concentration and just completely lose my train of thought or willingness to work on whatever I was doing, even playing games. And the sound of the keyboard actually just took me out of things quite often. Now this could be something that is just purely specific to me and my lack of concentration and being able to concentrate, but it is something that I noticed and wanted to comment on. It's one of those sounds that I think personally is really nice when you want to listen to like the sound of rain or the sound of something like that, but in everyday reality I just didn't find it that nice and more of a distraction rather than a feature or something I enjoyed. But then going on to the silent switches, the Smoothie Mints, I found them way better. They still have a satisfying sound to them, They're not fully silent, they're just not obnoxious is the way I'm going to word it. It's probably unfair to word it like that, but they aren't 100% silent, but they do not distract me in any way, shape or form. So another feature of the board, which to be perfectly honest isn't that important to me anymore, is that it does have full RGB backlighting, and I just keep it on this kind of like static rainbowish setting because all I really want is backlight. I'm not really too pushed about RGB anymore. So you do have double shot PBT keycaps, which in my opinion feel quite nice. They don't feel cheap by any means, and they don't seem to scratch or anything like that. However, they are not shine through, as you can see here. So the RGB just comes between them, but you've no issue ever. I've no issue ever seeing the keys. The overall look of the keyboard is quite nice, though. It's quite minimalist is definitely not the word because of the the RGB lighting, which again you can just turn to one static color. It's quite simple. So you can see it's just black and grey keycaps, a little bit of a gradient. I think you can get this in either white or cream as well, but I had a white keyboard before and I wanted to go black for two reasons: for it looking cleaner than probably what it is, and also to match the rest of my setup, which is essentially fully blacked out now. So my final verdict of the Yunzii AL68 is that it is a really solid keyboard, and I would highly recommend it to anyone in this kind of price point and for the features that I have described. So if you're looking for an aluminium board, if you're looking for it to be hot swappable and wireless, I think this is going to hit all the boxes for you because it just does all of those things well. Sure, it has a couple gimmicks with the volume knob, which to be perfectly honest, again, I don't think is really a gimmick. It is going to be useful to a lot of people, just not to me. Most keyboards are going to have some form of artsy backplate, which again is not really that big a deal. But if you're looking for a premium feeling keyboard that isn't going to break the bank, because again, 60 quid, if you're not changing the keys, is really good for this. I remember 6 years ago when I was buying the Ducky, there was just so few options and they were all so expensive. I think I spent 100, 110 euro maybe on my Ducky back then. So to get a keyboard that I think is much better than the Ducky for half the price is really good, but I do recommend it. Anyone who is considering the board, I would recommend to go ahead with it. So if anyone is on the fence and a lot of their wants line up with my wants and my needs, then I would recommend to go ahead buying it. If there is any questions or anything that I haven't actually answered in this video, feel free to comment it and I'll do my best to answer it in the comments. But if you are looking to buy this board, I will have a link for it in the description. Similar to my other videos, if my opinion of this keyboard does change over the coming months or years, I will do an update video and talk about those changes, whether it's good, bad or ugly, because I just want to be as kind of upfront as possible and pretty much make the buying decision a little bit easier for anyone who is in the exact same position as me 5 weeks ago. So again, if anyone does have any other comments or questions, just drop it down below, and until next time, thanks.